Hi, everybody, and welcome to another comics loving edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. Glad on this episode to be talking with author, creator, writer, Jonathan Hedrick. Jonathan, thank you for jumping in. Thank you for joining me, and thank you for the cool t-shirt that you brought to the show as well.
Yeah, thank you for having me, Jason. Fun thing about this t-shirt, I actually am giving another one away. Hard to see because I have it blurred on my background blurring, but yeah, one lucky backer of the Spillblood campaign who backed within the first 5 days will win that t-shirt.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So
Fantastic. So Spillblood is a book that we should definitely talk about. You
mm,
you have a really nice range of stories that you've
yes.
written from sort of more kid oriented with Space
Mhm,
Cadet to political thriller with
mhm.
Recount, Quicksand being horrifying in the best possible way.
Right.
Um, and Dream Master being quite a frightening book as well. So I
Yeah.
appreciate the science fiction, horror,
Mm.
fantasy, all the things that you bring to the medium.
Yeah, and thank you for noticing that. I appreciate anytime someone recognizes the diversity of the writing, and
Hmm, hmm.
it's always a pleasure to hear that I'm not pigeonholed into one particular genre or even just one particular title.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, so I appreciate that.
absolutely. I always appreciate that about writers, that sort of tackle, expand different worlds, challenge themselves.
Hmm.
So it's a very cool thing to see.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So what has led you to the world of comics? I usually start with an origins question. So this is
Sure.
a little bit of the origins.
Well, as a reader, I was introduced to comic books through the Ninja Turtles, being a child of the '80s.
Hmm.
The animated series was had a huge impact on me, as it did millions of other children my age, as it continues to do. With as we speak, there's another Ninja Turtles movie in the theaters, which is fantastic. That it just keeps on breathing new, life into more generations. But when I was a kid, I had to have everything turtles. I had those infamous bed sheets that I see that someone made into a t-shirt. I'm so jealous of that. I had the action figures, all the other merchandise, and remember in particularly at a grocery store one day, the spinner rack that's strategically placed by in kids' reach at the checkout aisle when they used to have spinner racks at the grocery store.
Hmm.
I know I saw a Ninja Turtles comic book, and it wasn't the Mirage, Laird and Eastman, style. It was the adaptions of the animated series. I think TMNT Adventures is what it was called. It may have
Hmm.
been
Hmm.
coming out through Archie or something else, and I had to have it.
Yeah,
um,
yeah.
and I think that taught me how to read, the sequential art form storytelling. And then I remember seeing the movie adaptation, the '89 or '90 movie, and that was a thicker comic book, and I could, read that over and over and over again. And that just kind of led to other picking up more comic books as I was able to, gain access to them. The '90s came and we had more cartoon shows like Batman the Animated Series, the
Hmm.
X-Men, Spider-Man, all those comic book focused, 30-minute animated shows, left me hungry for more, and there was plenty of comic books to go around. So that's how I say I got in as a reader, which I think every reader is also a collector at some some way on the spectrum of collecting. You're collecting comic books,
Hmm.
um,
Hmm.
but not all collectors are reading them. So uh, as we all know, but yeah, and as far as the writing side of comic books, that took a very much a longer time in my life for that to come around. About 5 years ago. I was always a writer. It's in some form or another, and I always leaned towards that in school. I was told by several teachers that, you're a good writer. You should,
Mhm.
do something with that. But when you're a kid, you don't idolize writers. You don't
Mhm.
really have a favorite writer. You have, a favorite basketball player, a rock star, and you want to be like that, especially in America when you're spoon fed, you can be anything,
Right,
No
right.
one, no one really has Stephen King posters on their wall, um, but um, I continue to write over the years, even after school. Something short form writing mostly, nothing I showed to anybody. Um,
Mhm.
and then one day I just wanted to challenge myself and try to write a script in the comic book format. Did some research online, checked down some books from the library, and I adapted like a 3,500 word short story that I wrote, prose style,
Mhm. Mhm.
into a 25 page comic book script. And then after that was done, I was like, now what do I do with this? And then, I asked around, one thing led to another, and I was producing a comic book. And once I understood the project management side of it, then I was all in. I'm like, oh, I can do this. It's something that's very plausible for many people to do. Writing is only one part of it all. So yeah, here I am, about 5 years later, and several titles, to my name. So that's the long origin story.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
You mentioned Stephen King. Is Stephen King an
Mhm.
influence? Are there particular
Oh,
people that are influences?
absolutely, Stephen King. Growing up, I grew up in the era where a lot of his movies and short stories were being adapted to film. A lot of them I didn't even know were Stephen King, stories or books for the longest time, like Stand By Me.
Mm-hmm.
I watched that movie over and over again as a kid, and then one day it clicked that, oh, it's actually one of his short stories and one of his collections.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, big Stephen King fan. In particularly the Dark Tower stories, which was influenced from and put a lot of that into Dream Master.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When I got um, the pitch from the publisher for Dream Master, I was like, this is I can see this going the route of Dark Tower. It's horror, it's fantasy, and it's a long story, and
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, I love Stephen King. Yeah, I can go all day about him. I met him before, got a first edition
Nice.
signed by him. Been been to his house on the outside of his house. I say that I've probably come across as a creeper, but did my own little like Stephen King tour in Bangor, Maine a few years
Nice.
back. So yeah, yeah, let's say I'm a King fan.
That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dark Tower or the Gunslinger books are
Oh
one of
yeah.
my favorite works that he's done. But then like
Yeah.
Apt Pupil and all of these
Oh
things.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he definitely has a range too. I think he's lumped into as a horror writer, but you know, horror, it gets tossed around and suspense and thriller get confused with horror a lot. And I think he's
Mhm.
a very good, suspense and thriller author amongst others.
So as a writer yourself, is there a genre that you're particularly drawn to, or a genre
Mm.
that you've not worked in yet that you'd like to tackle?
Well, I'm drawn to what I like to compare it to is the movie studio A24. They made uh, everything everywhere all at once. And for people that
Mm-hmm.
aren't aware, that uh, one called Men, one called Lamb. Um, and they're very bizarre stories and they're not all horror, as everyone knows, with everything everywhere all at once. But I like the twist on reality. Like this one little variable has been changed, and
Hmm.
how our world is impacted by that. And that's not always, in a horrible way. But it can go that way. So like in the recount, what if we're held accountable for who we voted for?
Hmm.
In quicksand, what if aliens came from below instead of above? In my book, Capable, what if the only superpowered people on the planet were those that used to be handicapped?
Hmm.
That what if, that. So I lean towards that. I'm not sure if there's a genre for that type of twist, or tweak on reality storytelling, but that's what I lean towards. As far as a genre I haven't tackled yet, I haven't published anything as far as romance,
Hmm.
but I am currently writing and producing something that I would call like a dark romance,
Nice.
or a tragic romance, in the style of Romeo and Juliet, but of course not Shakespearean, of course.
Hmm.
But that's one of my major projects. As I look up at my dry erase board that lists everything
Nice.
that's I
Nice.
have going on behind the computer. So yeah, I'm trying to tackle that, and I'm hoping that'll see the light of day soon.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. So what do comics allow you to do as far as a storyteller? What does the medium give you the chance to explore?
Yeah, what I like about comic books from a writing and creative standpoint is the how accessible it is to many people. Um, you know, and how quickly you can get it out compared to a novel. And I say that as I was, crying in my own pillow a few days ago, being frustrated at how long it's taking some of my projects to get produced. But it's a lot faster than a 360 plus page novel. And a novel, it's great when you can get one done, but it's hard to get in people's hands, and it's even harder for people to read. You hand someone a 24-page comic book with a pretty cover on the front, they're more likely to open it and read your words. So I like that aspect of it. And a lot of people are drawn to it. It's a very um, it's a clash of art forms in the best way. You have writing, you have artwork, and then you have all the different styles of artwork. People enjoying the line work, the coloring, the lettering. So it's very rhythmic when done well, as opposed to just staring at a painting or reading, a novel. You're getting such a mixed form of media, and that's what I really like about it, and how what it allows me to do.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. And I'm a reader across forms, but just always drawn to comics, always drawn to the
Mhm.
visual.
Yeah, it's you know, I haven't read a full novel in a while, and I'm overdue for one. But
Hmm.
but I can more likely to pick up a comic book, just because I'm like, all right, I got 30 minutes. I know I can read one issue.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
um,
absolutely.
I've had to. I have novels that are collecting dust right now, either just because I haven't had time, or just because a couple chapters into it, I'm like, do I want to invest the rest of my time to completing this thing?
Hmm.
Just for the
Hmm.
sake of saying I finished reading it. So yeah, I feel
Yeah.
like I have to be, as a lot of people, I would hope, feel like they have to be invested in a novel,
Hmm.
or because that's going to take some time for most people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
The other thing about comics that is kind of cool is the collaboration. So any
Yeah.
collaborators that you frequently go to, or any that you would shout out?
Yeah. Well, speaking of Spillblood, it's the artist Stefano Cartaselli. This is our fourth full length one shot that we're working on. So,
Hmm.
him and I finally like we've we have a groove now. We did a Freak Show Night, which is a zombie comic book. Then we did Space Cadet, an all ages comic book. Then Caffeinated Hearts, this slice of life one shot, and now Spillblood, which is a violent, vigilante esque type story. So return. It seems like at least once a year, Stefano and I are working on a comic book, I'm very lucky to be working with him, and that he want because he comes to me, and says let's do another project together, and I think that's wonderful. He's super talented. Um, it, he's super busy too, and to want to collaborate with me, yeah, it's a big deal. So I'm lucky that I get to work with him as much as I have.
Very cool.
Mhm.
Good to have those generative relationships that are
Yeah.
creative, and
Hmm.
you're not waiting on someone. You're kind of at the right pace.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a good feeling. I'm always hesitant when I start a new project with a new artist because it's like, I don't know this person.
Hmm. Hmm.
Sending them money. I'm not sure how quickly I'm going to get it back. Is it what the portfolio looked like? And it's you have to hold your breath. But I know what I'm going to get with Stefano, and he already has an audience too, so it works out well.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
Now you mentioned Spillblood there and a bit about the premise, but anything else that you'd like to expand on about how the book came to be, and
Yeah.
the Kickstarter campaign and all of those things?
Right, yeah. So Spillblood came to be because we had finished Caffeinated Hearts last year. Um, we crowdfunded it, and it got picked up by a publisher and distributed all in the same calendar year, which is fantastic. Yeah, that doesn't happen very often. And he approached me with an image which wound up being Spillblood, and he
Hmm.
said, I drew this thing. I don't know what it is, but I want to do a comic book about this image." And I was like, all right. So I looked at it, and it had this figure with this like dark robes and a skull floating above over the shoulders, and a halo behind it, and holding like guns. I'm like, okay, that's what I have to go by.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I uh, felt a lot of like religious connotations with it, and I went with with that. I haven't really did a book with heavy religious tones in it, so I came up with the idea that Spillblood would be this priest who during the day he sits in his confessional booth listening to sinners confess the worst things about themselves, looking
Hmm.
for salvation. And then at night he turns into this other being, and he eradicates whatever was causing those people their sins, essentially cutting the snake off at the head.
Hmm.
So they won't so those people won't be impacted or sin again. uh, so it's a 36-page one shot, and it's all black, white, and red. We chose not to color this one. It has a very like gritty noir style to it.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
I've been comparing it to um, Sin City in a way. It's the artwork isn't Frank Miller's artwork, but it has that the very limited color palette as Sin City did. And then I was doing an interview Friday night, and someone uh, kindly compared it to Grendel, and I was like, yeah, that's actually a great.
Nice, nice.
I
Yeah.
didn't think of that, but yeah, it reminds me a lot of those early 90s Dark Horse books. So
Hmm.
I think it would fit well into that catalog of comics. So yeah, it's dark. If you like ghosts, haunted priests with machine guns, this is right up your alley.
There it is. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I love the supernatural elements and the action hero elements.
yeah.
And those books, I mean, Sin City and Grendel, anything in the vein of early 90s Dark Horse is
Mhm.
a sale.
Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So if listeners want to go and support the campaign or find out more about your work, links, web spaces, things of that nature.
Yep. So my website is jonathanhedrickcomics.com. And that's a great hub for everything else. Right now I have a pop-up when you get to my website that can take you to Spillblood's Kickstarter campaign. Um, and then, on my website, I have my own web store. So you can purchase a lot of different comic books directly from me. And then I also have links to my publishers' websites. So you can go there and there's a link to get Dream Master from Black Box, to get Recount from Scout, as well as Quicksand, Space Cadet through them too. So, and if you're going straight to Kickstarter to find Spillblood, remember it's one word. I wanted to be a cool, artsy fartsy guy and decided to make it one word, Spillblood, like a metal band might do.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the best way to find everything. JonathanHedrickComics.com.
Very cool. Very
Yeah.
cool. I will put that in the podcast description, and there should be a nice little pop-up in this video, a little
Awesome.
sidebar that provides that as well. So,
Yeah. Thank you
anything
so
that we've
much.
missed through, oh yeah, absolutely. Anything that we've missed through the talk that you want to make sure to mention, shout out. I hope things are coming ahead, new projects are on the
Yeah.
way, and appearances and all of those things.
Absolutely. We mentioned Quicksand, issue one's already out. Issue two comes out August 23rd.
Mhm.
Issues three and four are available for pre-order. That's going to be a 5-issue miniseries from Scout Comics. I also have another comic book in stores through Advent Comic Books called Capable.
Mhm.
Issue one is already out. There's been a delay. Um, uh, no fingers can to be pointed of why it's being delayed. Just is, but issue two should be available for pre-order next month. But I have crowdfunded issues one through five, so if anyone's really eager to pick up the next issue of Capable, I have that on my website. And then yeah, I'm looking at my board. More things to come. That tragic romance. Hopefully I can make an announcement for that soon. Looking for a publisher for that, as well as the one shot that my wife and I are working on. My wife, Francesca Fantini, very talented artist. She draws steak with Scout, and she did Artemis and the Assassin with Aftershock, and she's doing a lot of cover artwork lately. We were working on comic book together. Sent our pitch and some preview pages to a few publishers. So we're looking for someone to pick that up and help finance that project. Working on another kids comic book, but this one is going to be a mini series, not just a one shot. Um, that's with my friend Deborah Lanchinese, who I'm working on Quicksand with. So completely different again.
Mhm.
The Quicksand, the sci-fi thriller, and then our another all ages story. It's nothing like that. So as far as appearances, if anyone's in the South Florida area on August 19th, I'm going to be at a store called Way Back When Collectibles. I'm really excited to go there because they're not like a typical comic book store. They have like collectibles, like you might find an old Star Wars figure or a cardboard cutout of Larry Bird, like that type of stuff. They
Love
don't
it.
really have current comic books, but they have you know when they have comic books, it's like key golden age, high dollar comic books. So they invited Francesca and I there, and then in November, I'm going to be at a show called Lake County Comic Con in South Central Florida. So that's about it for now. Con season, slowly wrapping up. There might be some more appearances that pop up, but I'll plug that website one more time. JonathanHedrickComics.com. I usually keep my appearances up to date on the website too.
Awesome, awesome. You are a busy, busy person. And
Yeah.
I think Francesca is going to do a written interview for my blog
Oh,
because
great.
this podcast has kind of spun out of a written blog. So
That's really cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I like
glad to
that.
feature her as well.
Yep, yep, she's wonderful. We're gonna about to unlock a Spillblood cover that she did in the last 10 days of the campaign. So super excited to collaborate with her too.
Yeah, yeah. Always good to collaborate with loved ones in that way
Yeah,
too. Yeah.
yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much, Jonathan. Thanks for taking some time to talk with me, and always up for talking about comics. So if there's anything on your board that you want to come back and mention and promote, glad to share about it.
That sounds good. Thanks for having me on, Jason. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.